What's up, YouTube? Nick Seraphin here again with Hunter Boyce, and today we are going to take a look at Boston's third game this past week against the Shanghai Dragons. First off, starting off when we were watching it, we got pretty upset from the very beginning because we realized that Fusions was missing from the lineup, which was kind of surprising to us as he had done so well last week. But it turns out that there was actually a reason he was missing from the lineup. He was actually not allowed to play because of some type of contract dispute regarding him being a two-way player and not being signed as a full-time player yet. There seemed to be some misunderstandings between both the team and the league. This was reported on by VP Esports just a few days ago. So there was a reason to why he wasn't playing, and apparently they were only told like a few minutes before he had got on stage. They actually said he set up his peripherals and everything on stage before, so this was pretty upsetting. And I mean, Axiom didn't perform that well.
No, a huge shock for us. I mean, just like losing Gamsa right at the start of the season, we lose Fusions right before the start of this Shanghai Dragons match. And Shanghai, to be fair, did perform very well on the day, but Axiom, he just couldn't replace Fusions' Ryan, and his ults, his shatters, they just weren't on point.
They weren't hitting.
And they weren't hitting, and he was getting picked out at really, really bad areas.
I mean, I noticed a lot of the time he was sending shatters straight into Gamsu's shield, and it just seemed like there was no rhyme or reason to a lot of it. It does make sense because I would imagine that the team was scrimming with Fusions the entire week, so Axiom probably was not prepared to have to play that night. So I understand where it's coming from, but it was really unfortunate to see that. I don't think anyone wants to lose to Shanghai Dragons as the first team. Really upsetting to watch. We were pretty upset watching it for the first time. And I mean, Axiom was getting picked out all game. He basically was feeding the other team. And I remember also a moment where Axiom had charged right into the enemy team, straight on. Like it looks like there was no game plan. The whole team looked kind of off too, because it looked like we were missing that leadership that we had. Before we were playing really well and together, you know, how you should be playing in the GOATS meta, but instead we just looked all over the place.
Yeah, we know Fusions is a very loud character, very revolves around the leadership role, and we remember from last week, even in his player interview, he had lost his voice, and that just shows how much of a shot caller he is for the team, and Axiom doesn't bring that.
No, not at all. So, I mean, that was really unfortunate. That's definitely a reason to why Boston didn't perform as well as we were hoping going into this match. And I'd also say we were kind of upset that Kelix had played again. Mm-hmm. I think I expected Kelix to play, but I'm really hoping to see more Alamo still.
I think more noticeably, even though we didn't see Alamo, I think we should have at the very least had seen him on the final map after the game was done and dusted and we had lost to the Shanghai Dragons, to not at least make that switch, to give Alamo some play time and let us see what he can do. It was kind of disappointing.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter at that point, really. I mean, Of course you want map wins, but once you lose the set, especially to the Shanghai Dragons on that first set. Shanghai is good now, don't get me wrong, but to be the first team to lose to them is just, I mean, it blew my mind.
Very embarrassing. You don't want to fall in that line. You don't want to be part of that history.
Well, I remember towards the end of last season, everyone was saying, Shanghai is actually not that bad anymore, just everyone prepares so much harder for Shanghai because no one wants to lose to them. And finally it happened, so.
Well, moving on to note as well, the Reaper picks at the start of the game, we saw in King's Row, he was dealing damage from very far areas, which makes no sense as a Reaper player because you get most of your damage at close range. So he was getting into fights and he was backing out really quickly as well and taking no damage in the fight.
It was strange watching him on that Reaper role. He clearly wasn't very comfortable on it. Maybe it would have worked out better if we still had Fusions to call shots, but I'm not convinced with that one. I don't think any team at the Overwatch League level should be playing a Reaper, personally. I think at that point, it's just a waste of a hero. One of the big things that you're missing out from having a diva is you're not able to take the grabs from the other team, so there's no threat of eliminating those grab on surges, and at that point, you're just basically giving them free fight wins. Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, it wasn't working out. Maybe you could see, oh, well, Reaper has a pretty decent ultimate. Well, it didn't go well for No on that point either. When he used it, he got booped right off the map.
I think I remember the casters saying, I don't believe we've seen No charge his Death Blossom yet. Is he ever going to do so? And when he finally did, boy, was it disappointing.
It did not look good.
No.
And I really hope that Boston learns their lesson from doing that, and I'm really hoping that Boston does not do that again, because it looked atrocious when I was out there. The fights were just going so slow. No didn't charge his ultimate. He couldn't land his ultimate when he got it, and it looked awful. I'd rather see D.Va out there 100% of the time, even with D.Va's nerfs. I think she's a better overall hero. But speaking of things that weren't going well, Sombra is the biggest issue that the Boston Uprising has facing them right now. It is amazing to see how much we cannot deal with that Sombra.
It's like we flop over on our side. We're a fish out of water when a Sombra is playing against us. And I remember you saying the Shanghai Dragons probably reviewed Boston's play and said, hey, if we play a Sombra, we win.
And
boy, did it work.
Yeah.
I don't think, again, as you said, I don't think we've won a single map where a Sombra was played against us.
Yeah, and I don't know if that's a fact or anything like that. We haven't really looked into that. But honestly, every time another team runs Sombra, we completely fall apart. We can't deal with EMPs. The only bright spots on some of that were Blase was able to catch out Sombra a few times. I think AimGod had some nice transcendences to deal with that. Mm-hmm. But still, I mean, EMPs just destroyed us every single time. And we need to figure out how to deal with that or play a counter Sombra. Because with how it's looking right now, every team is just going to run a Sombra against Boston and know that it's going to be a guaranteed pick. Also, I mean, speaking of AimGod, I don't know why we keep playing him on Moira in certain maps. It's really strange.
It's much like the note in Reaper, as you said. Reaper's not a very high-level character, and neither is Moira. Moira can't do the same damage that Zenyatta can, nor the same healing that Zenyatta can. And AimGod suffers big time on Moira, and we see it, especially on the first point, Ilios.
Yeah, on Ilios, it looked rough, and something that upsets me about that is AimGod is such a mechanically skilled player, and putting him on a hero like Moira is just going to make the whole team's value so much worse because he can't do that damage output. I mean, Moira is a very low skill mechanical player. You don't have to do much with her. You point,
you don't even aim.
You don't even have to aim. And having a player of AimGod's caliber on a hero like Moira was disappointing. I think that's the second or third game that we've seen them do that too, and it hasn't worked out well any of those times. So I'm really hoping in the future the coaches will learn from this and just stop doing it altogether. Keep AimGod on Zenyatta. It works out so much better all the time, and we've seen that time and time again. All right, so now let's take a look at some of the good things that happened during this game, because even though we got slaughtered, there were some bright spots that we can take away from this. One of those being Color Hex. This was his debut, and I think he did pretty decent. He was getting some pretty crucial picks and almost actually saving a lot of team fights to where we were completely getting destroyed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Any fight you could see, it was mostly the Shanghai White overtaking the Boston Blue, but every now and then in the feed you could see Color Hex getting a pick here and there, and he was dealing a good amount of damage as Zarya and putting in a pretty good shift.
And his Graviton Surges were pretty decent. He would use them sometimes to pick out one or two heroes, which worked out pretty well because we would end up winning those fights afterwards. Really, all you need is one or two picks in this meta, and you can win the fight pretty easily. So I think Color Hex was almost carrying us on some of those points. Too bad he couldn't do a little bit just more, but like, you're one hero, you can't do everything for the entire team. But he did play Sombra for a very brief moment.
Small cameo on Ilios we saw, and he performed well. And we've said it before, we would like to see Boston play a Sombra, and the one time we do well. I mean, why didn't we keep playing him throughout the rest of the game? I do not know.
I don't understand that either. I think it worked pretty decent. We didn't win the point still, but that was because of some other factors. He was getting picks on Sombra. His EMPs were decent. I mean, he looked good on that hero, and I really don't understand why we don't just always play a counter Sombra. If we're going up against another Sombra, you know what counters an EMP? Another EMP on the other team. Right then, you're both evened out. So I don't understand why we're not playing him on the Sombra. Hopefully, after the coaches saw him this week doing pretty well on the Sombra, they'll put him on the Sombra again. But I thought Color Hex had a pretty good debut despite the circumstances. Another player that did pretty well in this match was Blase, who was playing the Frigita, which isn't a super impactful character.
No. He was fairly quiet, just like we'd seen at the last weekend. But again, it's not a huge liability that he's quiet. He was getting pretty crucial picks, just as Color Hex was, and he was sticking with the team and doing his job as the Brigade and pushing the other team around.
He was picking Gamsu, actually, at some pretty crucial moments. He started off a couple fights with some rather strange picks on Gamsu. Maybe ones that you shouldn't let the other team get. His stuns were good, too. He was actually, on the last map, I think that he was the sole reason that we ended up being able to hold them, because he found Sombra at the crucial moment before she could get off her EMP. This was a huge play from Blase. I think Blase played really well in that last match, even though our team did pretty horribly. He really brought it, and it might have been because it was his birthday. But I thought Blase was great. Another person that did pretty decent was Aim God. As we saw last week, his transcendences seem to be on point.
Honestly, we should start calling him Mr. Consistent, because Aim God, every game, it just seems like he's carrying and consistently putting in a good shift for our team. He's getting kills that are absolutely outrageous, and he's putting in a ton of healing. And I know you'd like to talk about that right now. He has around 10,000 healing per 10 minutes.
Yeah, 10,000 healing per 10 minutes. And that's gone up since last week. I believe he was somewhere around 7,000 or 8,000 last week. 10,000 healing per 10 minutes for Zenyatta is pretty good. That's around some of the higher numbers that you see for the league. And I think that really speaks to his transcendences again. I mean, he's pulling out transcendences at the perfect times. Exactly when you need to do it. Graviton surges, EMPs, everything like that. He is single-handedly winning fights for us. And, I mean, mechanically, he still looks amazing. He's still getting picks at crucial moments. We saw him beat another Reinhardt this week. I really like what I've seen from Aim God so far this season, and he's a super bright spot for this team, and I really hope that the other roles can pick it up going forward, especially with Alamo. I really hope Alamo steps on and takes Kelix's place, and I really hope we can get Fusions back. Hopefully, Boston can figure out that situation with Fusions, because I think we're going to be in trouble.
Huge games this weekend, Seoul and Toronto.
So, as we know, Seoul's done pretty decent, and Toronto, they've done okay too. Yeah. So, honestly, it's really all up in the air right now. Teams have been losing to the strangest teams and winning to the strangest teams. I can't really tell you who's good beside NYXL and Vancouver, I guess.
Yeah, that's going to be a bloodbath when it does happen.
But anyways, if you guys like this video, make sure to leave a like. If you want more videos talking about the Boston Uprising, make sure to subscribe to Buff Cheese. And as always, thank you for watching.